it's really great that we could talk about such an important CRO topic, which is very often underrated or underrated. So to everybody out there, this is our first time we are doing our webinar with Zoom and LinkedIn. So if there is something going wrong, please be patient with us, and already sorry for that, but I'm positive that everything will work out. So I will pass the ball to you, Joe.
Great. Thanks, Stefan. Hello, everybody, and welcome. So I'm Joe Doveton from Binary Bear, and today we're diving into how to build a scalable CRO program for SMEs. Now, what do these brands have in common? We've got Topeka Coffee Roasters, we've got Self-Reliance Outfitters, we've got Vegetology. Well, Topeka doubled their conversions using a lightweight AI-driven CRO grouping without a full testing stack. Self-Reliance Outfitters achieved a 26% lift in conversions in 3 months, just by being better at refining their trust signals and improving the product layers, running those changes through A/B tests. And Vegetology tested replacing a 10% discount pop-up with a mystery offer, dramatically increasing sign-ups and sales. So what do these brands have in common? Well, I haven't come across them before. They're all small businesses, but all businesses who made spectacular gains using CRO and A/B testing tactics and then told the world about it. And they didn't need huge budgets or big tech teams. They just focused on getting the basics right, improving clarity, generating trust, and understanding user behavior. And they got real measurable results. So before we go too deep, I'm going to hand you back to Stefan, who's going to introduce Verify.
Yeah, just for you guys who are not familiar with Verify yet, we are an A/B testing platform, and especially since the sunset of Google Optimize, we try to follow their mission by just having a very affordable A/B testing tool out there. We want to allow everybody running A/B tests without having any excuses anymore of paying too much money, right? So for us, it's very important that everybody has the possibility to run a reliable A/B tests. So now I will pass the ball back to you.
Thanks, Stefan. And as for me, so my background with Binary Bear involves working closely with businesses on testing and analytics projects that deliver results for my clients. And I've been doing this now for about 16 years. So thanks so much for Verify for inviting me to do this. And together we're here to share insights that I'm hoping are going to empower you as the audience to better communicate the possibilities of CRO to your bosses. And I'm particularly thinking here those within smaller and medium-sized businesses or enterprises who stand to gain so much from using this type of approach.
Maybe one thing I missed. So guys, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat and just let us know about it. And I will ask Joe when I have the feeling the time is right. Maybe at the moment or in the same moment, or maybe at the end of the presentation.
Great, thanks, Stefan. So we've got to 2025 and we've got giant businesses like Booking.com, LinkedIn, and Amazon, and they're all innovating on the back of data from experimentation programs. But actually, most businesses are still stuck in the laggard or late majority phase when it comes to CRO. So despite CRO offering an average ROI of 223%, according to research from Matomo, and we still find that 61% of businesses are lacking a formal CRO strategy, according to Ascend2. And then only 0.1% of sites are actually running A/B tests, and that comes from Built With.
Wow. I think the number is really shocking, at least when I have a look on the 0.11% of sites running A/B tests. When I compare this to the amount of sites who are running some Google Ads campaigns, I don't have a proper number, but at least every second, every third, maybe professional online shop runs Google Ads, maybe even more, then this number is crazy as they put so much money into gaining traffic, but do not spend any money in converting it. So very interesting figures here.
It's nuts, isn't it? But it shows that there's a massive untapped potential, especially within the SMB market. Um, so, as you correctly point out, Stefan, it doesn't seem right that people spend so much money on ads and they're not spending no money at all on converting them when they get there. But why is there the reluctance? I mean, there is a massive amount of opportunity here for businesses. There's so much room in the chunky middle. There's a large set of businesses who should be testing. So there's something like 6% of all European businesses have 10 to 49 employees. So they're potentially going to be large enough sites that they're going to be doing, they can sustain a program of A/B testing. And there's another near 1% of businesses who have 50 to 249 employees. And there's only 0.2% of companies that are bigger than that. So this data shows that SMBs are a very big slice of the business landscape, but we've already seen they're less likely to be engaged with CRO.
Yeah.
So why isn't everybody doing CRO? What this slide is basically showing is that there are a lot of articles asking questions similar to this, and pointing to common challenges like the lack of understanding or the perceived complexity of CRO or resource constraints. Now, CRO fundamentally is about systematically improving a site to increase the desired actions that one of your customers makes, whether it's sign-ups or sales. You can do either through CRO and A/B testing, but there's a disconnect between the proven benefits and the adoption, as we've seen. We need to understand what the barriers are from the SME perspective to effectively address them. And when us practitioners and consultants talk about CRO, a lot of is made of terminology like, I'll put some of these up here. So ROI, agility, transformation. We emphasize the pace of change, the growth it brings, and even hint at FOMO, the fear of missing out if they don't adopt CRO. And these are all valid and powerful levers to pull. But the language that we use as practitioners is, whilst it's accurate from an expert perspective, it might not resonate with company leaders who are dealing with very different daily realities and concerns. And this leads to a bit of a gap in understanding. So we're saying growth and ROI, but what they're hearing is different to what we're saying. Our talk of transformation can sound like complexity and disruption. Agility might come across as lack of control, and ROI, whilst it's appealing, it's often overshadowed by the perceived expense, risk, and the potential trouble of embarking on something new. And this iceberg here visualizes that the hidden concerns that are hidden beneath the surface and are preventing SMBs from engaging. So we need to help people bridge that perception gap. And we face very specific misconceptions and mindsets among business leaders that, as practitioners and optimizers, things like design as decoration. Some might see CRO as making pretty decorative tweaks, not as a strategic lever for growth. The things like gut over goals, still, even now, a large number of decisions are made on opinion or intuition rather than concrete data and measurable objectives. We're too niche. Some businesses sometimes will tell me that they think their business is different, that their industry or their product is somehow immune to being able to optimize for. And then there's set it and forget it, which we see a lot. How many businesses build a website and then leave it untouched for years? So these
Yeah.
beliefs are barriers we need to address head on.
At least they leave it untouched till the next redesign is coming up, right?
Absolutely. And at some point, it starts to look tired and it starts to fall to bits. But it's only almost when it's too late that people can't start thinking about, well, actually, we've now got a much bigger project than if we'd have tackled this iteratively.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are operational and educational hurdles. So beyond mindset, SMBs face significant operational hurdles. There's things like tech terror, where the idea of complex tools and technical know-how is daunting, and they sometimes cite resource drain, um, a lack of time, budget, or talent to dedicate to CRO. And then there are siloed teams, so where there's nobody who owns conversion, leading to disjointed efforts. And ironically, for businesses that even where businesses are collecting data, there comes to the point there's people drowning in data, but they're starving for insight. And then finally, we encounter the risk and ROI hesitation. So we talk about the potential ROI, but again, the unknown ROI is a big factor. They don't understand its direct impact. And the traffic obsession, which Stefan's already mentioned a minute ago, means that they don't see the efficient gains from better conversion, but they reach instead for the comfort blanket of spending more money on ads rather than converting the people that they've got. Static site syndrome suggests a fear of changing what's already working. Well, our site's good enough, so maybe we should just leave it alone. And then the lure of shiny objects can make them overlook the fundamental impactful improvements that CRO can bring, leading to hesitation to invest in something they see as risky or unproven. So what we need to do is we need to reframe the conversation. We need to shift from our expert-centric language to a narrative that directly addresses the fears of smaller business leaders and speaks to their immediate needs and understanding. It's about translating the benefits of CRO into terms that resonate with the things that they worry about day to day, the day-to-day challenges and aspirations. We need to show them that CRO isn't just for the companies of the size of the Amazon or the LinkedIn and so on, but a powerful tool that they can use within their current business. So let's look in a bit of detail at some of these concerns. And this is an objection I've heard many times over the years, and in the way that the discourse operates within CRO, sometimes it can seem valid that CRO seems too complex, and people say we don't have the tools or the technical know-how to do this properly. Now, CRO can be technical, but the core mindset is fairly simple. And learn faster than your competitors. You don't need to be a data scientist. If you have somebody who is an expert data scientist within the business, that is only going to enhance your prospects. But in order to start CRO, you don't need to have that kind of function within the business. But what you do need is you need a clear question that you need answering and the will to test.
And the thing is, I guess, Joe, very often if you're just listening to all the stakeholders, maybe in your team or in the whole company, all of them have so many ideas, what some stuff which they wanted to try out for a very long time. All of them have hypotheses. You just need to talk to them. And in the end, you already will have a filled backlog. But very often it's just, you mentioned it before, the gut feeling which makes people just make decisions, right? And they just don't do the testing because I guess they have the feeling they just know how it should be. What's your experience here?
Yeah, that is very true, and a lot of businesses, as you've correctly pointed out, they do have things that they think, oh, if only we could try that out. So we've spent a long time at Binary Bed basically developing an approach which we call use, understand, solve, experiment, to try and simplify and demystify the CRO process a little bit. So with you understand as our kind of data gathering and research phase. So that backlog you talked about a minute ago of ideas that people within the business would have had, and it could be a boss, or it could be something that's come from a customer services department where they've had conversations with customers about the website and they've come up with some observations. Um, the point is that if you have a simple process like the use model that we have here, then you can start to collate the information, the understand phase, and then turn those into solutions. And then from there, you can practically experiment. And all ideas are valid, but at the solve stage, that's when you kind of you combine ideas and you sort them into practical things that you can go out and test.
I think there is already it's already a big step in a company if you already have at least something like a backlog. But
Yeah,
in my experience, at least for small and mid-sized businesses, it's more like uh, there is a review incoming. The review maybe is mentioning that the UX of the website is unclear or they do not understand the value of the product or whatever. And then all focus is on this review and they try to solve it. But this is just one opinion, right? And with just running or with just fixing one thing after the other, you are not developing your website strategically. It's more like you're just fixing one thing, but maybe you even make it worse if you don't test it, right?
it's the whack-a-mole approach. It's like there's a problem over here and you whack it, and then another problem, another leak springs somewhere else. So having a strategic approach where you think about what problems the things that, because a lot of this stuff starts, people start with the solution, and that's fine, but then you need to take it back and put it back into the understand box and say, what problem is this starting? What problem is this designed to fix? And from there, you can judge whether the solution that somebody's come up with is appropriate, and you can kind of refine your backlog at the start to stop you wasting time straight away.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another set of objections we come up. It's too disruptive. We can't afford to mess with our site or confuse confuse our customers. So when we hear this, we need to remind people that actually A/B testing runs pretty quietly behind the scenes. Most of your visitors won't even notice they're being tested. And when you get a test that's above the baseline, then you get proven lift without guesswork. So it's something that you've tested it formally against a new experience against the original, and you've got a proven lift, and it's you've tested it without having to guess. So reframe this common fear. Actually, it's not too disruptive. It's the least disruptive way you can improve your site because you do validation of your ideas before you commit. It's about making changes safely with data backing every decision.
I would even say it's exactly the opposite of disruptive, to be honest, because with A/B testing, you do avoid risks in the end. Just
Yeah.
think about doing a redesign without any testing. This is super disruptive, to be honest, because in the end, if this rebrush is failing because you try to reach maybe another target group or the old target group is not accepting the new design because very often it's not just changing a backend system. Very often you change the whole website designs, the whole UX because you think your website is too old and it's not up to date and people like modern design, whatever. In the end, it will maybe fail. And the most of the redesigns I know failed in the beginning because it takes some time until user will accept it. And sometimes they never accept it and you just have a big drop of your initial user base. So I think just running redesigns is super disruptive if you don't control it with any controlled experiments.
Exactly. And going back to this point here at the start, this understand, experiment, solve state, the understanding that research is informed by test results. So if you think about a big bang redesign that people, the web owners often do, actually, if you've been through a program of testing, you could say, oh, actually, this concept that the design team have come up with we've already tested it. We know that doesn't work. So as we design and iterate along the early part of the wireframe stage with a new site, actually the A/B testing you've already got in the bank can inform those redesigns as well. Okay, let's have a look at another one. It's too expensive. So the objection, it's too expensive. We're going to need consultants. We're going to need different platforms. We're going to need more traffic. This is something we hear a lot. But the key thing is you can start with a small program with experimentation. You don't need to start from the point of you're doing 10, 15, 20 tests a month. Basic experimentation costs relatively little, especially using a platform like Verify to run your tests, but the ROI scales exponentially. So many teams will see 10, 20, 30% gains from even fairly small iterative changes. So again, you need to reframe this. CRO doesn't cost too much. Guessing costs too much. And every decision that you make is a gamble, and the cost of making a decision based not on test data outweighs the investment in CRO.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about that. A lot of product teams also use A/B testing for feature development. And I think this is a very, very, very good approach, because in this way you can test your MVPs in a very good way. So do the user interact maybe with a new element? Is it accepted or not? And in the end, you can answer one specific question. Is it worth developing it? Because if you just build it with maybe based on JavaScript with an editor, whatever, and you just try to figure out if the new component, the new feature is accepted, then this costs not a lot of money. But think about you're developing a very big feature. Maybe it takes 2 to 3 months. And then in the end, you're figuring out your whole development team was working only on this feature, and you were hoping so much that this will work out, and in the end it just is not used, or maybe it even is responsible for a worse conversion rate. Then you just put 3 months into this feature, and all the time all the money is thrown away. So I guess it's even super necessary to run testing, because if you don't do, this can be very, very expensive.
Absolutely, 100%. And again, feeding into that is this idea of the loss of control. So some business stakeholders will have a concern. Well, I don't want to hand off our brand experience to some algorithm, but it's crucial to clarify CRO isn't replacing the brand, it's empowering it. Within the business, you're choosing the test. The data just simply tells you which version works best. So we should reframe the fear of losing control. You're still driving the strategy. CRO just gives you a playground to test some of these ideas out, and will provide you clear data-driven feedback to enhance your vision. Ultimately, you're in control.
Yeah, very often I think there is a struggle between a CRO team and a UX team. Have you also made this experience, Joe?
Well, absolutely, particularly brand teams. And I find it amazing now. One of the things that we, when a consultancy like mine and other agencies out there engage with an end user client, one of the first things we'll do would be do a heuristic review, which is a kind of fancy way of saying a best practice review of what the design looks like and whether the the value proposition stands out and the calls to action are clear and so on. And an amazing thing that we still see is the number of accessibility failures, even in 2025, where people have brand teams have specified color combinations that don't work together and are causing lack of accessibility for people who've got things like restricted vision, like let's say color blindness, which affects 8% of men. Aside from the kind of corporate health of making sure that your website is accessible to everybody. So brand teams make decisions and give them as a fait accompli to the people who are responsible for putting together assets like websites.
Mm.
And often they've not come from a place where they've been trained or tested.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always a bit of a struggle to have this argumentation with the brand team, but yeah, I think you also need to understand them because branding is very important for the brand. It's already in the name because everybody should connect some emotions with your brand. But on the other hand, very often the brand cannot be translated by 100% to a website because of all the reasons you mentioned, especially according to the accessibility. But I think it's always was searching for the conversation with the brand team and to develop something together. And in the end, if the discussion is just about a specific color or whatever, then maybe the business metrics should decide in the end if the color is really worth maybe a downlift of 3-4%, whatever. It's just an hypothesis, right? But
Yeah,
in this end, in this way, at least you can prove it that maybe sometimes looking for new perspectives of creating a website could make sense and is worth discussing.
absolutely. And another example I can think of here where there's a disconnect with this decision making and using the data that you've already got is, in my experience, many web redesigns spend far more time redesigning the homepage than they do any other page on the site. Something like 80% or 90% even spending heck that. Whereas actually, if you look at the analytics, probably 60-70% of their first time visitors arrive through something like Google search at a product page or a collections page or some other experience. But it's just a kind of possibly a legacy of print media that people spend all the resource on the homepage rather than thinking, well, actually, most of our customers are landing here. Maybe we should do that first.
We also got feedback from the audience. I just will read it. From my point of view, the problem arises from the fact that there are both a CRO team and a UX team. CRO should be a collaborative effort among everyone, UX, product, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. They're complementary. They're not exactly the same. They're complementary, but they should be working together. And actually, I think some organisations, and certainly some agencies I know, that although there's different skill sets, there is an integrated team.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And I think we all should learn from each other
uh,
because nobody has the absolute truth. Of course, maybe we are specialists how to optimize websites, but this doesn't mean we know about everything, about every aspect. And that's why everybody should just stay open. And there's another thing from the audience, another question or saying, and nobody likes being told their baby is ugly. It is key to collaborate with other teams to establish a level of trust. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's very true. And I think sometimes us practitioners and consultants, we need to pick our battles when we kind of when we're describing the relative ugliness of babies or not. Okay, I'm going to go on
Absolutely.
to I'm going to go on to the next one now. So here's an interesting one. What if it doesn't work? So there is a fear of failure and a misunderstanding about the data. If the test loses, we've wasted time. It might hurt conversions. At Binary Bear, personally, I know a lot of people do, but we don't use the terminology win or loss when it comes to A/B tests. Why? Because it fetishizes celebrating only tests which increase conversions, where often there is equal value or even more value in the knowledge gained from tests which don't beat the original. So we use the terminology above baseline and below baseline. It's neutral. It takes ego out of the conversation. It stops us from fetishizing chasing small uplifts instead of filling in the more valuable gaps in our knowledge that come from running a whole program, because there's no such thing is in terms of bad data.
Yeah.
The real risk is not one test winning or losing, but pushing, as you said, Stefan, pushing live stuff completely blind without any data.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think it's a very good point. I didn't take this perspective yet, did not consider that. But I think it's a very good thing, because putting the ego out of that just makes so much sense. And I think this is a very, very good learning. Because in the end, if maybe it's your test idea and it's a winner, so it's above best baseline, and there's another test from a colleague or another idea, it also could feel, yeah, frustrating maybe for them. And this should not be the goal. It's all about the learning and to have a common approach of improving the website and the conversion rate.
Absolutely. I remember I was working a long time ago for a video game company in Hamburg, and one of the tests our goal was improving signups on our video game, and it's a browser-based, desktop-based, browser-based computer game. And what we did was we moved the logo from the central sign-up box in the middle, and we put it in the left-hand corner, the same as it would be on a standard business website. And we run the test, of course, and there's no difference. And the guys are they're very upset because it's no. And I'm saying, you've learned something massively valuable here. You've kind of moved the key brand identifier out of the way of the main interaction box, and you haven't killed conversions. And sure enough, when we do a follow-on test where we're making the box a little bit bigger and we're putting in some value proposition text with that, but no brand, we start getting big winners. So, that test is the stepping stone to something else, even though it's a draw. There's no such thing as bad data.
Yeah, very good learning here, absolutely. And there is another question from the audience. Is there a recommended way from your experience to have UX and CRO work together instead of trying to one-up each other, battle against one another?
Yeah, I think you kind of need a common framework. If not for today, but you need a common framework. And going back to talking about our process, understand, solve, experiment, within that, if anybody who comes up with we call them data points, but an observation about something that is going on the website, each of those is valuable. But we have a process that we tie in, that we score everything in terms of, we ascribe a value to the strength of that observation based on which audience it's affecting, and how important that is to our kind of KPIs. And it's there's no ego in it. It's just we have a team that evaluates each of the value of those observations. So whether it's come from UX or come from CRO, or whether it's come from sales, or whether it's come from HR, whatever it is. Each data point starts life equal value, and then they get graded.
In my point of view, it's always pretty tough to coordinate both worlds without having common goals.
Yeah.
I think it's super important that the UX team and the CRO team works exactly on the same goal. And there could be a mismatch of improving the UX and improving the conversion rate. Absolutely. But in the end, if you have a common goal, you also can take or make compromises at some point. Sometimes a variation maybe is working better in a specific way, but maybe it feels a little bit like using dark patterns. Maybe it's not really a dark pattern, but maybe it feels a little bit as a dark pattern for the one or the other person. Then maybe you use a little bit more passive version, which also is good for the UX team. And the UX team, on the other hand, maybe also will do some compromises if they maybe need to integrate a new design component, maybe which is not a part of their design system yet. But I guess this could help a lot.
Exactly. And in the same way, you know, when you have an experiment set up on something like Verify, you might have multiple goals. You'll obviously be testing final purchase, but you might also, if it's an e-commerce site, be testing within the same experiment, be evaluating add to cart rates or reaching checkout one. You need to look at the bigger picture as well as your specific test goal. And with short scale objectives that, you know, that might be something for the UX team, like improving user experience. It might not always be for the good health of the business, and similarly with what the CRO are saying. So you need a range of KPIs in a project. The kind of short term, we've got to achieve a conversion, but also the longer term, how has this affected lifetime value or lifetime acquisition? Those kind of measures.
Yeah, very good point. And the audience was talking about using some models like Scrum Poker, the RISE model, and whatever. All of those models, I guess, can help to align the team to prioritize ideas or on what you really should work on. But in my experience, very often you get a struggle already. You don't have to struggle by scoring the idea. It's more like when you're creating the designs or the concepts in the end, because then maybe you have a very cool concept in mind and the UX team maybe is saying, no, it's not possible because it's not following our UX best practices. So usually, I guess, here you run into some potential issues. It's sometimes already with just having the idea, of course, but still, like we mentioned, I guess the main thing is talking to each other, having respect, and finding compromises in the end. And this is only possible if you work exactly on the same goal.
Exactly. And there are always constraints, you know, whether it's kind of the brand guidelines that you can't cross or there are compliance, you know, let's say it's financial services industry, there are compliance things you just cannot say. And, you know, everybody will have to compromise at some point. But I think the key thing when you're starting off is to try and come up with a framework that is as simple as possible. You know, whilst things like Scrum or Agile or any kind of other kind of methodology, they're hugely valuable and useful tools within some businesses. They're not going to work necessarily with all businesses, so you do need a bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
And then another objection we've got here is it just feels like work. So people sometimes say, you know, I've got to be honest, this CRO stuff, it sounds like it's more hassle than payoff. And yes, it's not passive. You are going to have to, as a business, put in a bit of effort, but it's perhaps not as much work as you think it might be. And every test gets easier and the compounding gains are very real. And once testing is embedded within your departments, it actually becomes part of the normal kind of ebb and flow of the business. And it's like investing. Small wins build into huge sustainable advantages, especially if you're testing at scale. So reframe this inertia. The businesses that win at CRO didn't find time, they made time. It's an investment in future efficiency and growth. It's not just another task. And I think that's the key thing to take away. It's R&D, it's investment, it's not a cost center. So just to summarize, here's a quick overview table of how we can reframe these common questions. When they hear complexity, we highlight the simple mindset of test, learn, and grow. And like I say, at Binary Bear, we have this model we call use, understand, solve, experiment. For disruption, we emphasize invisible tests that prevent risk. If they fear failure, we assure them it saves them from bad decisions. When they say it's too expensive, we show that guesswork is much more expensive and that small wins compound. For loss of control, we enforce that actually they're driving this thing, they're driving the strategy, and data is their dashboard. And for too much effort, we remind them that starting is the hardest bit and then it gets easier. So feel free to grab this as your objection handling cheat sheet, if you like.
It's a perfect cheat sheet in my point of view, because it's super useful for everybody. It could be useful for an agency who is trying to sell their services. It's super useful for selling CRO internally to all the stakeholders, maybe to the boss of yours or whatever. So to just spread the word about CRO, I think it's a really good thing. And to be honest, I have heard all of those arguments so often already, and I
Many
would love
times.
to have this cheat sheet before.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard these many, many times and others over the years. But if you remember one thing from today, CRO isn't a cost, it's a capability. It's a fundamental way your business can uh, learn about their customers much faster, significantly reduce risk, and grow much smarter. You don't need to be a massive enterprise or to achieve perfection to start. You just need to be willing to embrace the process. And the best companies, they aren't guessing, they're testing, constantly refining and improving. And your competitors already might be running experiments. The crucial question is, are you? And that's it from me. So over to you, Stefan, for any other questions we might have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe, for sharing all these great insights. They are really valuable. And I also really enjoyed the session with you, also our discussions. It was a lot of pleasure. And to all of you guys, thank you also for sharing these questions with us. And if there is anything else we can answer you today, please just write in the chat. And if not, it was a pleasure talking to you. And the presentation show, is this possible that we can share this presentation with the audience?
100% share it and give it to your bosses. And, I'm more than happy to, if you've got any specific questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and you can ask me some other questions if you're having any blockers within the business. Chances are that Stefan and I have seen them in the past many, many times. So I'm sure we can help with a lot of the other objections as well.
Absolutely. So there is a last question, but it feels a little bit like it's made for Verify, but I just will give the question to you. The main concern from companies is usually which testing platform to use and what's the budget. What is the testing platforms you recommend for a minimum budget? So if I need to answer it, of course, I would say Verify, but Joe, I think you also made a lot of experiences in the past with A/B testing platforms. What should people focus on? What's important for them in order to decide what platform they should use?
I think the key thing is integrations. Well, obviously ease of setup. Now, most tools are JavaScript browser based. So basically, it's a little bit of script that goes on the website, usually in the head of the document. And most tools work this way. And essentially, it allows you a toehold into the site where you can insert JavaScript and override what's on the page, and then the variation is served in the visitor's browser. And this is brilliant because you don't need to to completely recode a whole page. You can just insert an element and change the page, and it gets served in the visitor's browser. So that's the first thing. Most of the tools, including Verify, work like that. There are, and that's the simplest way to get started. So that's the first thing we're doing. Then integrations. If you're using web analytics, so one of the great advantages of Verify is that it integrates natively with GA. So if you're using Google Analytics, you're literally reusing the same goals that you have already set up in Google Analytics with Verify. So you're not duplicating goals. We strongly recommend that you export your data from Verify into BigQuery. So you're using the real numbers. And I'm sure there are resources on the Verify web. Well, I know that there are the resources on the Verify website to explain how to do that. But I would also look for the ability to integrate with things like session recording software, because the numbers are obviously the most important bit of the results that you get from an A/B test. But do not underestimate the power that you get from also watching back users interacting with the new design. And I've found things where I've got flat tests in the past, and you watch the you watch the videos, and you can actually see that change that we built within the tool. It's only on screen for about 2 seconds, so it's no wonder that there's no difference in the result. So there is massive value in integrating with tools like Hotjar, Clarity, Mouseflow, whatever you're using for session recordings. And if you're new to it, just have a look at the website, see who else is using the platform, and if you like those businesses, and just make sure that the documentation is really good with the tool. Most tools are. The documentation is very, very good, but documentation and customer services for setup errors are going to be really important as well. I hope that answers the question, or at least partially.
Yeah, I think so. But in the end, what I would like to add, an A/B testing tool is only the platform. If you want to have success with your A/B testing program, it's not a tool which which decides about your success. It's about your ideas, it's about your hypotheses, and about your effort and about the effort you're putting into understand how your users behave. And if you're doing this, it doesn't matter in the end which tool you are using, even if you use a, a solution which is built by yourself, which I heard in the chat. It also could be possible, but yeah, I would say just start with A/B testing, make your first steps, and run your first experiments. And then I guess it should be no question anymore if you need to run A/B test, because the success will come after a while. The learnings will start to come in, and also the uplifts will show.
Absolutely. One thing I would add for anybody who's not doing testing, there's I don't know whether it's the same in Germany or other parts of Europe. In the UK, there's an expression that when you learn to drive, you don't really learn until you've actually passed your driving test. And I think it's a little bit like that with A/B testing. There's don't put too much pressure on the first half dozen tests that you do. You need to start planning ahead, because it's a learning process as well. So the first 2, 3, 4 tests, you'll make mistakes. That's fine. Everybody does. So don't put too much pressure on those early tests. Stick with it. You'll find it gets a lot easier. And once you've got half a dozen, 8, 9, 10 tests under your belt, you'll start thinking, okay, I'm starting to get the hang of this now. And you'll start testing. You'll be more ambitious. You'll be testing crazier things. You'll come up with wilder results, and then you'll really start to get the maximum out of it.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for the last words. So the time is over. Thank you so much for having you here, Joe, and thank you so much for listening to our webinars, guys. As already said, we will share the presentations with you guys. And yeah, hopefully see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.